All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at critical infrastructure security and resilience.
CISR.
Yeah, CISR. It might sound a little niche, maybe something only people who work in power plants or something need to worry about.
Right.
But I think it's way more relevant to everyone than most people realize. Think about it. CISR, it impacts just about every aspect of our daily lives, From the water we drink, the electricity that powers our homes, the apps on our phones, it's all connected.
Absolutely.
And we're going to really see how connected it all is as we dig into this LinkedIn article we found.
Okay.
It's by Andrew Kagan.
Right.
He's the CTO over at Planet Technologies.
Okay.
And it's called Challenges, Strategies, and Solutions in CISR, Navigating the Evolving Threat Landscape.
Catchy title.
It is, yeah. Published just a few days ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
On November 4th, 2024.
Okay, so very recent.
Yeah, very recent, fresh off the press.
Very relevant.
Yeah. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack some of the key challenges facing CISR today, the strategies being used to address them, and then hopefully some potential solutions as well.
Yeah, I think Kagan, he really nails it when he starts talking about how blurry the lines have become between, like, our digital world and the physical systems that keep society running.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are using that to their advantage,
Right.
that convergence.
Yeah, definitely. So let's dive into some of the specific challenges that Kagan outlines in his article.
Sure.
And I think a good place to start is the cybersecurity skills shortage, which we hear about all the time, right? He talks about how small organizations especially are struggling to find experts. It's like trying to find a
Needle in a haystack.
needle in a haystack or a unicorn.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just one unicorn. It's a whole herd of unicorns we're missing.
Yeah.
Kagan actually highlights Australia, and they're having huge project delays. The cybersecurity professionals they do have are getting burned out.
Wow.
Just not enough people to go around. But here's the interesting thing. They're trying to tackle this head on. They're creating more apprenticeship programs.
Oh, cool.
And they're really focused on reskilling people from different fields, like IT, to come in and help out. It's a really proactive approach.
That's awesome. I love that they're not just complaining about the problem. They're actually taking steps to fix it, to address it.
Absolutely, find solutions.
Yeah. So speaking of solutions, Kagan points out that the lack of mandatory cybersecurity requirements
Right.
for critical infrastructure is a major issue. It's largely voluntary right now, which
is kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is kind of crazy. As you can imagine, it leads to some pretty inconsistent security practices.
Exactly. Some companies are going above and beyond. Others are doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Or even less.
If that, yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
And the worst part is the market isn't really rewarding the companies that are doing the right thing.
Right.
It's like they're being penalized for being proactive.
It's like the kid in school who gets in trouble for turning in their homework early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it creates a real disincentive for others to up their game.
For sure, yeah. Okay, let's move on to another challenge that Kagan talks about, the rapidly changing threat landscape.
Oh, yeah.
And he really highlights the rise of AI-powered attacks.
A little scary.
It does sound a little bit scary.
Yeah. It's tough to explain, but think of it like a chameleon, blends in perfectly with any environment, really hard to spot.
Okay.
And that's what these AI attacks are like. Hackers are using AI to create like deepfakes for fraud.
Oh, wow.
They can hide malicious code in images using steganography.
I've heard of that.
And they're always adapting their tactics.
So it's like we're not just trying to build a wall anymore.
Right.
We're trying to anticipate the chameleon's next move.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then on top of all of that, we have the ever-changing world of regulations.
Don't even get me started on that.
Oh, I know. It's a lot.
It's like trying to navigate a maze where the walls are constantly shifting and changing. You've got multiple regulatory bodies, frameworks, and sometimes the requirements even contradict each other.
Right.
It's a real headache.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
But isn't compliance sometimes at odds with innovation? How do we manage that tension, especially with new technologies like generative AI coming out?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Generative AI has the potential to change so many industries, but it definitely opens up new avenues for attack. We need policies that encourage innovation while also acknowledging and mitigating the risks.
It's about being strategic and proactive, not just reactive and fearful.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like we've got a skills shortage, inconsistent security practices, AI-powered threats, and a regulatory maze to navigate.
It's a lot.
it does sound a little overwhelming.
Mhm.
But luckily, Kagan doesn't just leave us hanging with all these problems.
No.
He offers some strategies for tackling them head on.
Yeah, he does.
And one that I thought was particularly interesting is this idea of rebalancing responsibility.
Yeah. For a long time, the burden of security has been placed on the end user. Like when we get those warnings about clicking on suspicious links or creating strong passwords.
Right.
But this new national cybersecurity strategy, it aims to shift that burden to the major players in the digital ecosystem.
Okay, so holding the companies that develop the software, the services accountable for building secure products from the ground up.
Exactly. Security by design.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make sure they follow through? I mean, is it just a matter of trusting them to do the right thing?
Well, trust is important, but it's not enough on its own. That's why Kagan highlights realigning incentives. So we need a system where prioritizing cybersecurity is actually rewarded.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, think about it like regulatory safe harbors.
Okay, regulatory safe harbors, what are those?
So imagine you're playing a game.
Okay.
And there are these designated safe zones where you can't be attacked. That's kind of what regulatory safe harbors are like.
Interesting.
Companies that can show they're following certain security standards and best practices, they would be shielded from some liabilities. It basically encourages good behavior.
By offering some protection.
Yeah, exactly, and reducing risk.
Yeah.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle, right? Government procurement policies could favor companies with strong security.
Okay.
And public recognition programs could highlight organizations going above and beyond.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach using both carrots and sticks to get everyone moving in the right direction.
Exactly.
I like that.
And it can't just be a top-down approach either. We need strong public-private partnerships.
Okay.
Like the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative.
Heard of that, yeah.
To really make progress, these partnerships, they make it easier to share information, coordinate responses to threats, and develop joint solutions.
Right, so everyone benefits.
Exactly. We need to be working together, sharing information, learning from each other if we want to be truly resilient.
It's like a neighborhood watch, but for cybersecurity.
I like that.
Right. And speaking of working together, Kagan also emphasizes investing in a resilient future, which I think goes beyond just playing defense.
Right.
So what kinds of investments are we talking about here?
Well, first and foremost, we've got to address that skills gap we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
We need to invest in workforce development. That means expanding access to education and training, make cybersecurity careers more appealing, more diverse, and create more pathways for people to enter the field.
It's about building a stronger and more diverse cybersecurity workforce for the future, which will benefit everyone.
Absolutely. And then there's R&D, which is crucial. We can't just rely on the technologies of today to fight the threats of tomorrow. We need to be pushing boundaries in areas like threat intelligence, vulnerability analysis, and yes, even AI-powered defenses.
So we need to be investing in the tools and technologies that'll help us identify and mitigate threats more effectively.
Exactly.
As the threats themselves become more sophisticated.
And precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, we can't forget about strengthening operational collaboration. This might be the most important piece.
Okay, so you mean making sure that everyone knows their role, how to work together seamlessly when an attack happens.
Exactly. Think of it like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Everyone knows their part, and they can play together flawlessly, even under pressure.
That's a great analogy.
That's the level of coordination we need in cybersecurity.
Okay, so we're talking about incident response plans, communication channels, open and clear between organizations and government agencies.
Yeah.
A culture of information sharing. No more silos.
Right. It's all about collaboration, transparency, and a shared commitment to cybersecurity.
Awesome. And then Kagan also mentions this idea of zero trust, which he says is absolutely essential for building a secure future. Can you explain what zero trust actually means in practice? It sounds a little...
A little intense.
Intense, yeah.
It is. It's a fundamental shift in how we approach security. We're moving away from the old castle and moat model where we just assume everything inside the network is safe, to a model where we verify every single access request, regardless of where it's coming from.
Okay, so like checking IDs at every door in a building.
Exactly.
Making sure only authorized personnel can get in.
No more implicit trust.
I see why that would make things more secure.
Right.
But I imagine it's also pretty complicated to actually implement.
It can be, but the benefits are undeniable. So by eliminating implicit trust, implementing strong authentication, like multi-factor authentication, and segmenting our networks, we can limit the impact of potential attacks.
So even if a bad actor gets through one door, they're trapped in that one area.
Right.
Can't move around the building.
Exactly. Minimize damage, contain the breach.
Yeah, that makes sense. This has been a great overview of the challenges and strategies that Kagan lays out.
It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot. But what about solutions? What can organizations actually do?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. That's what we'll dive into next.
All right, can't wait. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with more insights from our deep dive into CISR.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about those big challenges in CISR.
Right. And how we can't just leave folks hanging with all the problems. We need solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of the solutions Kagan talks about.
Okay, well, one of the first things he mentions is leveraging these robust cybersecurity frameworks.
Frameworks, that sounds a little, I don't know, abstract.
Yeah. Well, think of a framework as like a blueprint
Okay.
for building strong security.
Okay.
One of the best-known ones is the NIST cybersecurity framework, CSF for short. Okay.
It helps organizations figure out, like, where their weak points are, what to prioritize.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all.
No.
It's more of a customizable template
Right, exactly.
they can adapt to their own needs.
Exactly. And there are tons of resources out there to help organizations implement them effectively.
That's great. What other practical solutions does Kagan talk about?
Another big one is security by design and default. Remember earlier, we talked about shifting the responsibility for security to the people developing the software.
Yeah, the developers.
Yeah, the service providers.
Yeah.
Well, this is where that comes in. So instead of tacking on security as an afterthought, it's baked into the product from the very beginning.
Okay, so like building a house with strong foundations,
Exactly.
not trying to add them later.
Yeah, much more proactive and effective.
Yeah. I wish more companies took that approach.
I agree. So then he talks about the importance of comprehensive identity management.
Okay, so many attacks target identities.
Oh, yeah.
We hear about it all the time.
All the time. Data breaches, identity theft.
So what does comprehensive identity management actually look like?
Well, first of all, strong authentication. Passwords alone just aren't enough.
Right.
Organizations need to be using multi-factor authentication.
So it's not just what you know.
Right.
It's what you have or what you are.
Exactly. Makes it much harder for attackers to get in. And it's not just about keeping the bad guys out. It's also about controlling access on the inside.
Okay.
So organizations should adopt this principle of least privilege.
No more giving everyone admin access just because it's easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just asking for trouble. And then continuous monitoring of access logs
Okay.
is crucial. Spot suspicious activity, respond quickly.
It's like a security camera, always recording.
Exactly.
If something goes wrong, you can look back.
Right, exactly. And in today's world, threat intelligence is so important.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah.
So it's about staying ahead of the curve, being proactive, learning from each other.
Exactly. It's like having this network of spies.
I was going to say like a spy network.
Yeah.
Constantly sharing information to stay one step ahead.
Exactly. And there are a lot of resources for this now. Platforms, threat intelligence feeds.
Organizations can subscribe to those.
Yeah, to get info on the latest threats, connect with other security professionals, share best practices.
So it really is a community effort.
Yeah.
Working together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the skills gap. We got to address that.
Right. How do we do that? We're always hearing about the shortage of cybersecurity professionals.
It's a tough one. But we need to promote cybersecurity education at all levels.
Starting young.
Yeah. K-12, higher ed, get kids excited about it.
Show them it's a real career path.
Exactly. More training programs, certifications, apprenticeships.
Okay.
Help people develop those skills.
So it's about being more inclusive.
Yes.
Creating pathways.
Exactly. And Kagan mentions the potential of AI for defense, which is interesting, right? Because we just talked about AI attacks.
Right. So it's like this double-edged sword.
It is. But in the hands of the good guys, AI can be equally powerful.
What are some ways AI can be used for good?
Well, generative AI, for example, it can automate tasks, freeing up security analysts.
Makes them more efficient.
Yeah, so they can focus on the big picture. And AI is great at sifting through tons of data.
Right. Looking for patterns we might miss.
Exactly. It's like an army of digital assistants working around the clock.
Okay. But we still have to be mindful of the risks.
Of course. Of course. We need to make sure AI systems are trained on good data, they're protected from manipulation, and that we're using them ethically.
So AI should augment human intelligence,
Right.
not replace it.
Absolutely. So we've got frameworks, security by design, identity management, threat intelligence, workforce development, and AI for defense.
That's quite the arsenal.
It is. But there's one more thing that's often overlooked.
What's
A culture of cybersecurity.
Okay, so that's not just about tools and technology. It's about creating an environment where security is everyone's responsibility.
Exactly. Not just the IT department's problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone needs to be aware of the risks, understand their role, and feel comfortable speaking up if something seems off.
It's a team effort.
It is. And this brings us back to Kagan's final question. What emerging technologies might pose the biggest challenges to CISR going forward?
Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, we've talked about AI, but what else is there? Quantum computing, biotech, nanotechnology.
Honestly, it's hard to say.
I mean, things are moving so fast.
It's like we're standing on the edge of this vast, uncharted territory,
Right.
and we don't really know what's out there.
It's both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
I agree. But that's what makes CISR so fascinating.
Yeah.
You know,
Always evolving.
always something new to learn.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent this episode really getting into the nitty-gritty of CISR, all those challenges, the strategies, even some real-world solutions that organizations can use right now.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And before the break, we were talking about that feeling, almost like sci-fi, of how emerging tech is going to shake things up even more for CISR in the future.
Yeah, it does feel like we're right on the edge of something brand new. We get these glimpses of like quantum computing, biotech, even nanotech.
Right.
But we don't really know how they're going to impact CISR in the long run.
It's exciting for sure, but I bet it's a little daunting for the people who actually work in cybersecurity.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like they're always playing catch up,
Right?
with the latest advancements while also trying to predict what's next.
Yeah, and that's why constantly learning and adapting is so important in this field.
It's not like you learn one thing and you're good.
No.
It's constantly changing.
Exactly. You got to have that growth mindset. Always be challenging yourself to learn new things.
So for our listeners out there who might be feeling inspired, maybe thinking about a career in CISR, where would you even recommend they start?
You know, I'd say just dive in. Don't let all the complexities scare you off.
It can seem overwhelming.
Yeah, but there are so many different ways to get started, and you don't necessarily need a computer science degree.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So like for someone who's brand new, what would you suggest?
There are so many great resources online now. You can find intro courses, get certifications, even virtual labs where you can get some hands-on experience without, breaking anything real.
Right, safe environment.
Exactly. NIST and SANS Institute, they have great training programs.
Yeah, those are well respected.
Oh, yeah. Recognized all over the industry.
I'm really surprised by how accessible cybersecurity education has become.
Oh, yeah. There's really something for everyone.
It's fantastic. And you mentioned community before.
Oh, the community is huge. There are so many organizations, online forums, where you can connect with other cybersecurity pros, learn from their experience, get advice, support.
It's finding your people, your tribe.
Exactly.
And like you said earlier, practical experience is so important.
Can't beat it.
So how do people get that?
Look for volunteer opportunities, internships, even just work on your own personal projects to build those skills.
So even something as simple as like setting up your home network and experimenting with different security settings.
That's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
It's all about getting your hands dirty, trying things out, learning by doing.
You're going to make mistakes along the way.
Oh, for sure. That's how we learn and grow.
Right.
The important thing is to be curious, ask questions, and never stop learning.
That's great advice. And as you're exploring CISR, always remember it's not just about the tech. It's about people.
Exactly.
It's about understanding how people use technology.
How they make decisions, how we can build systems that are secure and easy to use.
Finding that sweet spot
Yes.
between security and usability.
It takes a deep understanding of human behavior, psychology, even sociology.
It's fascinating.
It is. It's what makes it so challenging.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive into CISR.
We covered a lot.
We did. From the current challenges to, like you said, those emerging technologies and what they might bring.
It's clear that this isn't just a tech problem.
Right.
It affects all of us.
And it's going to take all of us working together to make things more secure and resilient.
Absolutely. It starts with awareness, education, and that commitment to always learning.
Well said. And for our listeners who want to explore this topic even further, you can find links to Andrew Kagan's article and other resources in the show notes.
It's a fascinating field.
Yeah.
Always more to learn.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into CISR. Until next time, stay curious.